All right. Folks, my name is Brian Bodine. I'm with the Texas Freedom Coalition, and this is our Legislative Priorities Press Conference. We are here today. It is May 28th, 2021 at the Texas State Capitol in Austin, Texas. And the reason we are here today is to address core, key, fundamental priorities that have come up this legislative session and that are very dear to conservative voters and freedom-loving people everywhere. Freedom is essential, plain and simple. And some of the key topics that our speakers and organizations are going to talk to you about today include emergency powers, monument protection, sanctity of life, election integrity. You will hear from public officials, you will hear from organizational leaders today on these key issues and why they are important. Also, what went right with session? What went wrong with session? What remains to be done? And finally, do we need a special session here in 2021? And what should be on that agenda? Ladies and gentlemen, I will start out with introducing State Representative Bryan Slaton.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see you and great to be with you. And, we had some good things happen. We did. But there's more that needs to be addressed. There is so much going on. And so seems to be just out in front of us. And we can't be happy with the steps we take. And we're going to have to keep pushing. And, we have the legislative priorities of the Republican Party. And, I still think we need to abolish abortion up and get a vote. The heartbeat bill, well, it's good. But here's the problem. The heartbeat bill has passed. It lets the abortion doctor, the person who is making money on performing abortions, they are the person that determines if there's a heartbeat. And it's up to them. This is a fox guarding the hen house. And I see there could be some problems with that. So I'm hoping we can address that. I'm hoping, that, of course, we can ban the mutilization of children. And from the drugs, the hormones, the surgeries, we need this. And as you've heard from Jeff Younger and others, as he's been in the court cases, the judges are asking for the legislature to act and give them some guidance on what to do. And as I've mentioned before, in 1993, the Democrats here in Texas, they voted to stop electroshock therapy on children 16 and under. They recognized it as what it was. It was torture because electroshock was invented by the Russians. They performed on their bad citizens. And then for some reason, psychology picked it up and was using it as therapy. And so as they acted to protect kids in 1993, we need to act to protect kids. After someone's 18, 19 years old and they want to perform those surgeries, they apparently can do that in America. But not a child before puberty's even taken place. And it's not their decision. People are making the decision for them, as they do with everything else. So I also hope Representative Biedermann's here. He's going to talk about monument protection, and we've got to protect the Alamo. We've got to protect our history. I'll let him talk more on that. The other thing is our border. I've had the opportunity to meet elected officials all down in South Texas. And the things that are going on there, it is an absolute disaster. And it's only going to get worse. As we're here at this meeting today and we're all hot and sweaty, we're going to have some very bad months down in the border, June, July, August. Give you a couple examples. There's this one county I was talking to, they had a budget for body bags for the year. Do you know they've already blown their budget wide open as of May of this year? 5 months into the year, they've blown their budget for body bags. We say we care about people. We care about the vulnerable. And then there's children being brought across the border. We're getting reports of the smallest number I've heard is that the cartels are making $11 million a week with all their activities. They have no desire to slow down and to stop. We have to act. And think about the counties that are on the border. They're not big cities. And Indian County, 2 or 3 counties away from the border, they're not big cities. A lot of ag, rural, hunting might be and ag may be their biggest industries. they don't have the money. They don't have the resources. So I've heard of sheriffs that are having to pay for uniforms out of their own pocket for their deputies. They're getting in police chases, 1 and 2 a week, when most officers get into a chase maybe once a year. What's going on there is only going to continue to get worse for the rest of Texas. This is a problem for all of Texas. This is not a problem for just those on the border. But we need to start listening to those people down there dealing with this every day. It's not safe, it's dangerous, and it's an atrocity what's happening to people. People are just dying out in the elements. And we need to act. If the federal government is not, we have to act. We cannot just sit back and keep yelling and say, hey, you do something, when we know they won't act. It's time for us to stand up for ourselves. And also for those people that are being taken advantage of. And so I hope we can have an immediate special session to address these issues. And you know what? Let's close our border. And if people want to come in, they're going to have to go through another state that doesn't seem to care as much. That's the way I see it. But thank you all for having me. Let's keep up the work, and I'll hand the microphone.
Representative Sutton, thank you so much for coming out. And we wanted to present you with a Courage Award.
This award is from all the grassroots groups that are here today, and we wanted to recognize you for outstanding moral courage as you've been representing us in the legislature.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Y'all truly all deserve this. And in my heart, y'all know it goes out for a great dad and Jeff Younger. I just hope y'all just keep patting each other on the back. You're doing a great job. Keep up the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representatives. Our next speaker this afternoon is State Representative Kyle Biederman.
Thank you all very much, and again, this is where it all starts, and we are not going to give up. We are not going to surrender. It is victory or death for these causes, because these are the causes that built our country. These are the causes that made America great. These are the causes that made Texas great, and these are the causes that we are not going to give up. And this is what, without our fundamental principles and values of freedom and liberty in this country, what do we have left? And that's why we can't give up. Now, this session has been very difficult in trying to get especially monument protection. It's just unfortunate that the will is not there to protect our history. And but we have made progress, and we're going to keep moving. The legislature doesn't move very quickly, but with what's going on in this country, with who we have now in the White House, and all of our rights and freedoms, and the taxation and everything that's happening coming down from Washington, D.C., not just the people in Texas, but the people all over the country are standing up, and they're ready to fight. In fact, there's some states that are doing a better job than Texas is right now. And so the more of us that do that, the more that we'll have a chance to get these passed, but we cannot give up. We just cannot give up. And again, without you all supporting us, and without your voice being heard, even if it's not popular with some of the legislators here, or some of those in leadership, just know they're hearing it in the back of their head, and they know that you're not going to give up. We aren't either. But there's so much else happening in not just our country, but of course in the state of Texas. With the priorities, remember, we've got an election coming up, and we've got redistricting coming up. We're going to have, I believe, a real surge in the amount of Republicans that are going to be elected. We're going to take over, obviously, in D.C., but we're also going to gain here in Texas. And the more we gain, the more it is to help us get some of these priorities passed next session. And again, it's all about courage. It's all about courage. And I'm going to tell you, it's difficult inside there. Very difficult. And the people you think may be with you are not with you. And it is not easy. I am so grateful to be with a few that are very strong and have stayed strong. Representative Slayton, and of course Kaysen, Tinderholt, and a number of others. But we are going to continue to fight, there's no doubt. And we thank you for you. Without you guys, we'd feel like we're alone. But I'm telling you, the army is growing of people that are recognizing and are being woken up about our freedoms and our liberties being taken away from us. So we'll keep fighting, you keep supporting us, and we're going to make things happen no matter what. We'd love to have a special session. We have some things that are ready to go right now that should not have been killed or in the last couple of days and had the time run out. That's a shame. That's a shame. And I agree with Lieutenant Governor Patrick that we need to finish, and we can finish strong. But we're definitely coming back in September, October, and we'll have another chance there. So we have to continue to persevere and not give up. So God bless you all, but God bless the state of Texas. Thank you.
All right, folks. And next up, Kristen Bentley is going to say a few words, and she's going to introduce our next speaker. And Kristen Bentley is the president of the Texas Freedom Coalition.
All right. Hi, everybody. I am going to introduce Dr. Yvette Lozano, and she is an amazing doctor. Many of you have heard of her. She has treated thousands of patients who have COVID-19 with a drug called hydroxychloroquine. Am I saying it right? Okay, good. All right, so this is an issue that's near and dear to me and to Texas Freedom Coalition. We have seen such an assault on our health freedom, and in particular, we've had a lot of censorship from our government and also private, so-called private organizations who are censoring this information. And so we are so proud to have you here today. I get the chills just saying it, to give people information about what you have done. So let's all give a round of applause to Dr. Yvette Lozano.
So Kristen doesn't know how dangerous it is to give me a microphone. Actually, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. We are all under a lot of censorship, and I just want to get some information out. I want to tell people what's happened in my life in the last 15 months, and I want to give good news. So here's the good news. The pandemic is over. Yes, absolutely. So this pandemic was actually over in February of 2012. And how do I know that? Well, I know that because when the pandemic started in March of 2020, and we realized that there was a crisis, all of the doctors should have gone immediately into their offices to start treating patients. That's what you do when you have a medical pandemic. And so I was in the middle of vacation, and we dropped our vacation and we went right home so that we could start taking care of those patients that were afflicted with this Chinese virus. Let's call it what it is. I know that we describe it as COVID-19, but I want to also mention its origin, because I think now, after 15 months of censorship, we can officially say that it is not a natural virus. It was man-made, and my suspicions from the beginning have come true. So when I got to the office, obviously I had no clue how to treat this. And so I did what I thought was logical. I treated the patients that walked in with the therapies that I had used in my office for the previous 20 years that would treat influenza A and B. And what I realized is that I had some success, but not a lot of success, but at least we were keeping them alive, and they were coming over back again and again, which was unusual, because people who have influenza come in, they get our protocol, they go home, they do great, but these COVID patients, they would come in again and again, and it was pretty frustrating. We were getting people from Wisconsin and California and Utah, and I'm located in Dallas, Texas, so I was quite surprised that these people were walking in the door. And you have to realize, we were all on lockdown, the streets were empty, and these people were getting in their cars, and they were driving 12, 15 hours to come and see me, and so I was quite perplexed. And then it just dawned on me, these doctors are not open. They're not taking care of their patients. What is going on? I did not get the memo. So let me tell you what the memo was. The memo was, send them to the ER. Give them Tylenol. Let's intubate them. And I just thought before we got to that stage that I should try something out of my little doctor bag to see if I could intervene. And so one day, after days and days of frustration where the patient volume was higher and higher every single day, I went home to just grab a bite to eat. And as I was at home, I heard the president getting beat up by the media. That wasn't anything normal. We'd seen that for years. And he said, I got good news. And I thought, man, we need some good news, because it was all bad news on how many thousands and thousands were dying daily, how many millions were dying. It was worldwide. It was all bad news. And he said, I got good news. There's a doctor. That caught my attention, right? Doctors normally don't lie. There's a doctor in France, and he's treated 19 patients and they all survived. And I thought, wow, that is great news. Tell me how he's doing it. And President Trump said hydroxychloroquine. And I thought, that's kind of strange. I know that drug. I've heard that drug. Don't use it very often, but on my patients that go home to visit their families in Africa, it is used as a preventative or prophylaxis for malaria. And so, I didn't go out and start dishing this drug out. I went home and I did a little research to find out what it did. And here's what I discovered. I discovered that the patients coming into my office with the Chinese virus had fever and night chills, and they had night sweats, and they had shortness of breath and cough. And guess what? Some of those symptoms were malaria symptoms. And if this medication was treating patients in France, I wanted to try it in patients in Dallas, Texas. And so when my patients came in and they couldn't breathe, I said, do you want to try this? And they said, absolutely. And I said, there's a doctor in France who had some success, and he treated 19 patients. And they said, give it to me, give it to me. And I said, okay. And we dispensed it, and they went to the local pharmacies, and they got it. And within about 24 to 48 hours, I got a phone call from the pharmacist. Dr. Lozano, you have met your quota. We're not going to give you any more of this medicine. What? Are you kidding me? I'm like, these patients are really sick. They've got temperatures of 101, 102. They can't breathe. They're in here sweaty. It's just their bodies hurt. Just the body aches were horrible. And the pharmacist said, no, ma'am, can't have it. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm not going to deal with you. I'll just go to another pharmacy. And guess what? Walgreens across the street said the same thing. And Kroger and Tom Thumb, and I could go on and on and on. And I was beside myself. In fact, I was spending more effort trying to get the medication filled than actually treating the patient. The treatment was easy. The symptoms were obvious. They were the only ones coming in. My patients were hunkered down. My diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, they weren't leaving their house because they'd been shut in. There wasn't anybody in the street except for COVID patients searching diligently to find a doctor that would treat them. And many couldn't find one in their state. I could not wrap my brain around that. That didn't make any sense to me, okay? And then one day, I had a friend say, hey, we're trying to open up Texas. You want to come and talk? And I said, sure, give me a microphone. Be careful. If you give me a microphone, I'm going to tell you what I think. And here's what happened. I said, hey, look, I've had great success. We've treated about 100 people. And that was not a good thing for me to say, because before I knew it, I had people coming into the office in numbers that were so massive. We were really having trouble just treating them all. And if you go and you look in some of the social media, you'll see that I would show up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they were camped outside. Now this is ridiculous. In the United States of America, where we have the best medical care in the world, that our doctors were closed, and I could not understand it. A drug that had been out there for years, 65 years to boot, one of the safest drugs in the world, was on the top 100 safety list, and I think it was in the top 10. I mean, safer than Tylenol and aspirin. And for some reason, the pharmaceutical department in this country said, nope, not going to give it to you. And so it was a real problem, and it was a real struggle, and it made my job extremely difficult. But let me tell you what has happened in the last 14 to 15 months, okay? I found a pharmacist that would help me. In fact, I found a few. And so that made my life so much easier. And these patients just kept rolling in. And guess what, guys? They started recovering so quickly. The patients would walk in the door, and within 45 minutes, let me repeat that in case you didn't hear me. This pandemic from this Chinese virus, they would come into my office. They could not breathe. They felt horrible. They were a panic state. The fear was the worst. And within 45 minutes of me giving them a pill in the office, these guys' symptoms were almost completely gone. It was dramatic. You see, I had acquired a bottle of hydroxychloroquine that I could give as the initial dose in the office when the patient came in and was so afflicted that their oxygen levels were dangerous. And so I had to learn really quickly about oxygen. I didn't have an opportunity to send these patients to the pulmonologist. The pulmonologist was closed. I didn't have an opportunity to send these patients to the emergency room. They didn't want to go. They knew what had happened in New York. Do you remember? Let me remind you, 25,000 people dead in New York within weeks. We were sitting here building ventilators when what we should have been doing was dispensing hydroxychloroquine, and I couldn't figure it out. It didn't make any sense to me. And then I realized that some of my colleagues were like, are you crazy? Why are you using that drug? I'm like, it works. It really works. Why don't you try it? It works. But here's the deal. My colleagues all had some. They all had a dose just in case. But they weren't open because they weren't allowed to be open. They didn't want to get in trouble by using a drug that was not FDA approved. Well, here's my problem. I had people in my office that couldn't breathe. I thought I would get into more trouble if I didn't treat them, if I sent them away and closed my doors. And so I treated them, and I couldn't have done it by myself, guys. You know, you see me and you think I'm the one that was bold and courageous. No, it was the girls that were in my office taking their vital signs and getting them in the rooms and doing the vitals and getting the blood ready and getting the prescriptions sent. It was a team effort. And we did great. Up to date, we've got over 1,400 patients that we have treated successfully in the office. I have not had a single patient that did not respond favorably to hydroxychloroquine. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's got cardiac problems. No, it does not. None of my patients had cardiac problems. Well, you didn't give it to the risk group. Are you kidding me? I had fat people, I had people with diabetes, I had people with hypertension. I gave it to the highest risk groups. I love talking to doctors that say, well, the ones that showed up at the ER were sicker. Okay, well, I had oxygen saturations in my office of 77. Okay? Most people get intubated at 85. Listen, it was really scary. Did I have to send a few to the hospital? Yes, I did. And what happened? You don't want to know. You don't want to know. Okay? And so here is the good news. The good news is we figured this out. And this is my concern right now. I've got so much information, but nobody wants to know about it. I reached out to Greg Abbott to tell him about it. I reached out to some of my local politicians. Only politician that was interested in anything I had to say was Senator Hall. Have you heard him? Screaming it from the top? Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, I know all of the other politicians. Remember, I was very politically active. When Obamacare came in, I thought, this is not good for the country. This is socialized medicine. We don't want this. And so I got involved, and so I know them all. I've raised money for all of them. I've helped put them all in office. But when I called them and said, hey, look, I got this skinny on this Chinese virus, this COVID-19, not a single one of them wanted to talk to me. Really? I wonder why. I still can't figure it out. You guys try to figure it out. But let me tell you what I know, okay? Most of the patients come in, and they do really, really well if they come in early. The key is early treatment. Well, what were we doing? We were sending them to the emergency room, and the emergency room was sending them home for 10 days, and if you're not better, come back and see me. Are you kidding me? 10 days? Or let's get a treatment, let's get a test, and the test was taken 7 to 8 days. Well, by that time, you're ready to be intubated because you're blue. You can't breathe. And so I knew that those were not options. They were not options. These patients needed to be treated immediately. And what I noticed was, if they were skinny, if these patients were pretty healthy, their recovery was very quick. Within 2 days, they were back on their feet and they were good to go. But if these patients were heavy, and yes, I know it is offensive, I say if they were fat, I use the word fat, I want to catch your attention. Because when you come in and your oxygen level is not really good, I need to wake you up so that you do the protocol, so that I do have success with you. And so these patients were fat, well, so was I. I want y'all to go back and look at some of those videos that I did. I was really fat, and shame on me because I was a doctor, I know better. But you know what, when I figured out that it had to do with sugar, and that only took a couple of weeks, this chick dropped 58 pounds because I wasn't going to be a victim to this Chinese virus. So here's the message that I want to give you, okay? We are no longer in a pandemic. How do I know? Well, I'm not seeing 40 people in the office any day. They've decreased, okay? We've got a few trickling in because they've been hunkered down for a year and a half, right? They haven't been exposed. But most people had herd immunity by December 2020. And by February, the pandemic was over. I don't care what the politicians tell you or what Fauci, CDC, WHO, whatever. I don't care what they tell you. I'm telling you on the ground. I'm on the ground. I'm in the battlefield. And they stopped coming in. Now, did they stop coming in because they found other doctors? I sure do hope so. Because if I were a physician and I didn't treat in the middle of a medical pandemic, I couldn't sleep with my conscience. And I reached out to all of my colleagues and I said, what are you doing? How can you sleep at night knowing that these people are out there and that they need your expertise? Because you see, every patient that comes in is different. And every patient needs a different protocol, right? Some patients have diabetes, some patients have hypertension, some patients have underlying autoimmune diseases, and so I have to curtail how I treat them. So no, I don't do telemedicine. And I didn't do prophylactic care because, my goodness, I was having a trouble getting the medicine for the ones that were really, really sick. So all of you that called me and said, why don't you give it to us, telemedicine? Are you kidding? I was spending every waking breath trying to make sure I could keep the ones alive that had made it to the office. You cannot imagine the phone calls that I got, the messages left on my answering machine. My husband's in the hospital. My brother's on a ventilator. You know, I couldn't take care of those people because I had a buttload of them in the office. And so now February is here. The pandemic is gone. They're still trickling in, just a few, and these are the ones that did not get the benefit of herd immunity because they hunkered down and they wore a mask for 15 months, okay? So now let me tell you how you prevent getting it, okay? Number one, it has to do with sugar, okay? The key to this Chinese virus is sugar. We all know that it was not natural, it was man-made. I believe it was an attack on our country. I believe it was biological warfare. And I believe that they targeted Americans. And what do we have in common? We are a fat nation. Shame on us. No exercise. Shame on us. Eating out all the time in these restaurants that have poor quality foods. Shame on us. And so what I do now is when they walk in the door, the first thing we do is we look at the sugar. And so I want you to do the same thing because I don't want you as a customer. I do not want you to be the next patient at Lozano Medical Clinic. I want you to get better before you come see me so that you don't have to. Because I'm full and I'm tired and I want to rest. And so you're going to check your sugar. You're going to buy a diabetic monitor and you're going to check your sugar. And if your sugar is greater than 99, and do it today. Do not wait for tomorrow. You don't know who you're going to run into on the way home. You go get a glucose monitor, you check your sugar, and if it's greater than 99, I'm letting you know you are going to get COVID. And if you're skinny and healthy, you're going to get over it because 99% of people recover without any intervention. But for those of you that don't recover because you have a sweet tooth, that's what I had, or because you're fat, that was me, you're going to have a rough ride with this virus because it doesn't want to let you go. Okay? And there is no curing this virus, okay? What virus do we know or have we seen in the past that we cure? Let's talk about HIV real quick, okay? Is it a virus? Yes, it's a virus, okay? Is it still around? Yes. Have we cured it? No. Do we have treatment? Yes, we do, right? Oh, here's an interesting thing. Just want you to think about this. HIV's been around for about 40 years. I mean, we've spent billions of dollars on HIV and patients afflicted with HIV. Do we have a virus vaccine for HIV? We don't. Isn't that interesting? As many billions of dollars and millions of people that have been affected by this horrible disease that we don't have a vaccine, but all of a sudden we've got a vaccine for COVID-19? Are you kidding me? You think I'm going to believe that? Really? And that they figured it out in 3 months when it's taken 40 years and we still don't have one for HIV? So I'm going to let that go and I just want y'all to think about that, okay? So it's the sugar, right? Okay, here's another one. When you're heavy, you've got fat. What is that fat? The fat is stored sugar. So if you're heavy, you have to exercise, right? Because if you get the weight off, there's no stored sugar. And if there's no stored sugar, you can go around any COVID virus you want to go around because it's not going to affect you. It's going to bounce right off your body. So, take home message today, if you remember anything I say, the pandemic is over. People are still getting affected and infected because they have too much sugar in their body. If you don't want to get it, you don't need a vaccine, you need to get healthy. And healthy means sugar levels between the ranges of 60 and 99. Go get it. Let's get rid of this virus. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette Lozano. Wow, that was good. I love hearing Yvette speak. I mean, just the amount of detail that she can go into on these issues, and has been so educating for us. you know, especially those of us that just didn't know her super well before 2020, and then she had already been on the scene, and then when she started talking and doing the circuit, you know, during all the stuff that was happening last year, I mean, it has been very informative to hear from Yvette Lozano. She is a major asset for the conservative movement in Texas. Next up, folks, we have one of our favorite senators here in the Lone Star State, Senator Bob Hall.
There's two things I hate. One is following Alan West or Yvette Lozano and talking to her. I just, but I couldn't get down here sooner. Glad to see y'all here. To say the least, this has been a very frustrating session. It started out bad and never seemed to move off of bad, just changed the tone of what it was. Although I'll say we are getting a bit more than I thought we were going to get, but not nearly as much as what we should have gotten out of it. So we got a ways to go yet. I mean, the good news, I was going to start with the good news and we'll end up with the bad news. But the good news is I think we got a reasonably good gun for bill for constitutional carry. It's got few little things to be fixed in it, but I'll tell you this, it is a whole lot better than what I thought we were going to get if we got anything at all. And down here, you have to understand, it's not just all black and white. There is a lot of gray in which you don't get all what you want, but you get more than what you could maybe not have gotten. And so that's one of them that I think that we can say that we made a good move on. The other is what we did in life. Heartbeat bill is really a good bill that we got, and the trigger bill. I mean, we are much better off today than what we would have been in the past with it. And so those are a couple of major steps that we've made with it. We aren't across the finish line on election reform yet, but watching what's happening with the committee and where it is, I think we're going to get a good bit of what we need to straighten out elections here in Texas, in spite of the incredible strong opposition against it. I mean, it was a long, tough one in there. And so those are the things that we did do. The things that we didn't do that we have to come back and fix is, one, is protecting the individual's right to choose on an experimental vaccine. We have to get that passed.
Yes.
We got it heard, but just could not get traction on that bill. The other is we did just a little piece of protecting our electrical grid. We got a little bit on weather, solar weather, but that was all we're able to get. That still has to be addressed. A major one that there's absolutely no excuse. The one that's the hardest for me to even talk about, and that's gender modification. 3 bills that would have done the job. One of them better than the other 2, but 3 that would have done the job were purposely killed in the House. They were not, by direction, by plan, by design, did not see the light of day in the House. And that is one bill, one thing that we absolutely have to do. And we did not get any real movement in Texas taking charge of its border. We had a bill for border security, interstate compact that we worked on for multiple sessions now, that got it over to the Senate, and it was killed in state affairs over there. Did not get there. The one other thing I didn't mention that I'd say was the good news, we did get the bill passed that makes Texas a Second Amendment sanctuary state. And so between that and the carry bill, I think we kind of those were home runs for us in the thing. But the rest of it we need to come back. We absolutely need to have a special session. We unfortunately along the way we're still working on getting a couple of bills through. One is protecting religious freedom and making churches an essential so that they're not shut down again. That isn't across the finish line yet. We're in conference on it. The governor's office wants to change it. The governor's office wants to move the word essential out of it, and that is key to it. Without that word, the bill is completely neutered, and so there's a fight to keep that in there. And so there is no question that we need to have a session to come back, and as Dr. Lozano said, the pandemic is over. It's been over for months, but we're still in a state of disaster, and I'm not sure what it's going to take to get us out of it. We essentially don't have people going to the hospital. We don't have people dying. We don't have people getting infected unless they happen to get the vaccine, and then they seem to be getting infected and infecting other people. And so we are still on a very misguided path in fighting this thing. And Dr. Lozano was the pioneer. One of the first to speak out on this is had therapeutics. We have absolutely no reason for a vaccine. 2 of them aren't even vaccines. They're just experimental drugs. And so this railroading the people into forced vaccines, I pray that we never see in Texas what we've seen in California, where they're actually bringing in the police and holding people down to vaccinate them. The closest we've come here in Texas was in Dallas, where they took the National Guard, went down to Deep Ellum to get the people after they had a few drinks to get them vaccinated down there on Deep Ellum. That hopefully is stopped now. But we're out of this thing. The pandemic is over. It's done with. There's no reason to continue, and so we should be out of the disaster. I think the only reason we're staying in it is to try to suck up some more federal money, and that's a poor excuse to do it. But I'll absolutely tell you that there is a lot of sentiment pushing for a special session. It's up to the governor, because right now I don't expect to have any bill passed that does anything with executive powers. They will die. The bills that have passed actually enhance his powers a bit, and that's unfortunate that's happening. But that's the way it is. I'm here just reporting to you what happened, and some of them will keep fighting for it. And if we just can get a special session, there's a possibility. But remember, in a special session, we can only do what the governor gives us to do. So holding out for getting something in a special session in which we rein in executive powers, you know, it can wish for it, can hope for it, but I don't put a lot of hope in that being able to happen. So I'll take a couple of questions and I'm going to have to go. We're on the floor.
Would it do any good to contact Abbott about getting some of those bills?
Absolutely.
Contact its donors.
Pardon?
Contact its donors.
Anybody that's standing in the way, absolutely. And the governor's office is the one that doesn't believe we need to do anything about gender modification protection, doesn't want to do anything about executive powers or any of the things that did not pass. Because what the governor's office wants is what happens. And if it's not happening, you can say it's because the governor doesn't want it to happen. Yes, sir.
Are you going to be writing a letter to Abbott to address these priorities and ask them to put it on the session, including monument protection?
We're still working on what we're going to have to say when the session's over with. I haven't been quiet before. I'm not sure there's any reason not to be. Yes, one more.
What is the argument for forced experimental drugs that you hear when you present these bills?
For the good of the people.
So no science or anything
No.
like that?
No. There's nothing like that.
Thank you.
One more.
Senator, we have 18,000 National Guard troops in Texas. Why do you think the governor is not sending them down to the border? He's only sent 500 so far. Why is he not securing our border?
Well, it's because we cannot do it. It's actually illegal for us to take action on federal law. Illegal aliens coming into the country is a violation of federal law, and only federal agents. Matter of fact, I've been told by the attorneys that if we were to apprehend someone and take them back across the border, the people that did that could be sued or charged with kidnapping. So we don't have the authority to do it.
Yeah, so what's it going to take? How do we do that?
That's going to take the federal government doing it, or we had the interstate compact.
There you go.
That all we need is one other state to join with us, and we could then do it, but it takes congressional approval of that interstate compact. But that's the way that we could actually do it.
Let's do it.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
guys. God bless you.
Senator Hall, we have going to present you with a Courage Award. And go ahead.
Senator Hall, this is for you for your hard work, and I know that you're just doing your job, but a job well done deserves a thank you, and this is for to recognize your outstanding moral courage in serving us.
Wow. Thank you very much. Just doing what I said I was going to do. What promises made or promises kept, that's the only way I know how to do it. So God bless you and thank you.
All right, folks, and wow, we've had some serious star power here this afternoon. We've had some great legislators here in Texas over the years, and I'm just really impressed with the work of Senator Bob Hall, as well as Representative Kyle Biederman and State Representative Brian Slayton as well, and others who won't be able to join us today. There are some great ones in the House and in the Senate, but we know as the grassroots, we certainly do have work to do come election year next year. We need more state senators like Bob Hall and representatives like Kyle Biederman and Brian Slayton. Next up, we have Jill Glover. She is a SREC committee woman with the Republican Party of Texas, and Jill is going to talk a little bit about the legislative priorities. Her special area of focus, kind of like the subcommittee that she runs with the SREC, it's the Child and Gender Modification ban, or the Banning of Child and Gender Modification Subcommittee. Is that right?
Yes, you got it right. All right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. You know what? I really have to hand it to the grassroots this session. Never have we had such incredible participation. The legislators have received thousands of emails and phone calls and office visits, and you guys absolutely have rocked. It is just amazing how engaged citizens have been. And at the very beginning of session, we really had hoped that that would happen, and we did everything that we could from the party standpoint to equip and to educate our voter base, and everyone has just simply outdone us. But you know who has not performed, and that is our state legislation. Okay, I can't even say words today, but our representatives and our senators have not performed the way that the grassroots have. You know, we had a real simple request, and that is we had 8 priorities that our Republican delegates selected at our last Republican Party of Texas State Convention last July. Pretty simple things, you would think. Election integrity, religious liberty, protecting children from mutilation and sterilization, right, through pediatric sex change. We had constitutional carry, we had abolishing abortion, school choice, protecting our monuments, and banning taxpayer-funded lobbying. Those are Republican things, those are Republican issues. We have the Republican majority in our legislature and our governorship. So you would think we would be able to easily get all 8 of those priorities passed, right? Well, as you guys know, it has been a struggle all session long. We have felt like we are dragging these men and women over the finish line to get things done, right? And what have we wound up with? Well, election integrity, I'm optimistic. It's in conference committee. We're hearing good things, but we don't know yet. We have to see it when they're done with it. But we must have election reform. We have to know that our elections are safe and secure, and that our elections will not be stolen in the state of Texas. We must have religious liberty, right? We know that coming down from the Biden administration, they are looking at every way they can to limit our religious liberties. And so we must pass good, strong legislation here in Texas. And I'll be honest with you, we had probably, I'm guessing off the top of my head, we had about 15 good religious liberty bills, if not more. And I think we're going to wind up with maybe 3 or 4 that are going to the governor's desk. And so we're grateful for those few, but we needed more. And so that's been a disappointment. But here's the thing. The most important one to me, other than abolishing abortion, because that's life, right? And we must protect life. But to me, the next most important one is banning pediatric gender modification. And here's the reason why. It's not just about saving kids from sterilization, mutilation, which it certainly is, and that would be enough on its surface, but it's also a cultural thing, because right now our kids are literally losing their minds because they don't even know if they're male or female. 30% of our children have question about their sexual or gender identity. What does that do in terms of their critical thinking by the time they're old enough to vote? Right? So even if we do get great election reform, if we don't have citizens who can make wise decisions when they go to the ballot box, our country is in trouble as it is, right? So we have got to protect these kids. We've got to protect their bodies, their brains, their ability to reproduce. I mean, already we're not reproducing at rates that we used to. Kids are not marrying at the rates that they used to. Our country is in very grave danger. And so that's why this particular priority to me is absolutely critical. And here's the thing, Lieutenant Governor. You can't expect us to be happy with just protecting girls and biological girls in sports. That won't cut it, because that doesn't take care of the underlying issue. If we pass a ban on banning pediatric sex change, that will take care of the biological sports issue, right? Because we will have less kids confused when they get old enough to play sports. So while I very much do want to pass that bill, if I had to pick between the two, I would pick the pediatric sex change ban. But we want both of them, right? But Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, we're not going to overlook that one just because you're advocating for protecting biological girls in sports, right? We're not gonna have the wool pulled over our eyes on this important cultural issue. And that is why we have gotten so much pushback from the other side. They know exactly what they're doing in messing with our children, right? They know that this is the way to collapse our society and usher in totalitarianism. And here in Texas, we say no. We are not going to let this happen. We are going to protect our kids. And so we ask for a special session to address pediatric gender modification, which I would rather just say sex change ban in children. It's butchery, it is sterilization, and we need to call it like it is. I do want to say that we have had a couple of heroes in the Texas House and Senate this session. Y'all know who they are. I don't think anybody could have championed this cause better than Representative Brian Slayton. He tried time after time after time to get amendments to protect kids, and I guarantee you at least 3 or 4 of those amendments were perfectly germane, and there was absolutely no reason for those amendments to have been.
To some of the activists that were out here lobbying, especially for the Save James bills. They purposely killed those bills. Burroughs killed that bill. Patterson was a part of killing that bill. Stephanie Click, she was a part of killing that bill. And we are going to hold them accountable in primaries. We are going hunting. We are going hunting for those rhinos, and we are going to have them all primaried out. This was the swampiest, dirtiest sessions we've ever had, and we need to hold them accountable. We need to not let them go off of that narrative and let them say that this was the most successful sessions ever. It was not. That's right. It may have been the most successful sessions ever for Democrats, but it certainly wasn't for Christian conservatives here. That's all I wanted to say, but thank you. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Jinlo. All right, next up we have Tracy Shannon, the Director of Mass Resistance, correct? And the Texas Mass Resistance, and Tracy has done an incredible amount of work on the gender modification issue, fighting that, and I've met very few people in my time as an activist that have had the dedication that Tracy has had in such a short amount of time in recent years. So folks, Tracy Shannon.
Thank you. all the grassroots for all your hard work this session. It's a shame that our Republican majority in the Texas legislature did not put our priorities first. They did not put Texas children first. There were many bills to protect children. There were bills to eliminate the obscenity exception for education. Those bills died. They died, and some of them never even got a hearing. There were 6 gender modification bills to ban pediatric gender modification on children. All of those are dead. 4 of them were killed by Stephanie Click in her Public Health Committee. One never got out of her committee because Speaker Phelan and Representative Leach decided to pull a stunt where they dismissed for 3 days and didn't hear bills. So then we ran out of time. Never let them say they ran out of time on our priorities. We cannot let time run out on Texas children. No child is born in the wrong body. There's absolutely no scientific body of evidence to prove anyone was ever born in the wrong body. We have 17 gender modification or pediatric gender clinics for children just in Texas. A few years ago, there were 7 in the whole United States. And now there are 300 in the United States. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. The indoctrination in our public schools, and nothing was done to stop that. So now we have children coming home and telling mom and dad, well, my pronouns are they and them. And by the way, there's a surgery for that too. And I'm sure that these doctors and psychologists call that affirmative care. And what that involves, it's called a nullo surgery. What that involves is cutting off the penis and testicles of a male and making them smooth. And what that calls in a female is sewing her vagina shut and cutting off her boobs, or maybe leaving just enough tissue so you can't tell. And that is affirmative and so-called life-saving care. That's what these perverts want us to believe, and your insurance is paying for it. We should have a bill that mandated that we don't pay for that with our insurance. I don't want to subsidize that abuse, especially in minors. And do you know, minors, yes, minors do get surgeries. I'm so sick of people telling me otherwise, but it's so simple to find out by making a phone call. We called Crane Clinic in Austin twice, and they confirmed that they've done several surgeries on minors. Okay, they removed the testicles, it's called an orchiectomy. They removed the testicles of boys, 16-year-old boys. They removed the breasts of 14-year-old girls. They admitted that readily on the phone. Okay, and guess what? They can get your insurance to pay for it. That's kind of the main thing. If your insurance will pay for it, then you're probably going to get it done. We need to protect these children. I'm so sick of hearing that they're going to kill themselves because some adult told them they're the opposite sex, and if they don't have chemicals that harm them, that they're going to kill themselves. An adult told them that lie. And the state of Texas cannot come into agreement with a lie, and it already has, and that's a shame. Governor Abbott, you need to stop mutilating kids in the state of Texas. We are ashamed to be Texans in a state that allows this medical predation on children. And we're starting to have a little rain here, so we may have to pull back.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to move the speakers underneath this, and y'all can stand around the perimeter so you're not getting rained on. If you want to move your cameras, now's a good time to do it.
This should be good enough for just zoom it accordingly.
Whose was this one? That's mine. Okay. Okay. Tracy, was that, did you cover it? Okay, just that one thing. And after Tracy, we'll have Brandon Burkhart.
So our Texas legislature and our government is okay with telling you all kinds of different things you can and can't do. You gotta wear a mask, you can't have this medicine medicine for the Chinese virus. You can't do that. But that was supposedly to protect us. They passed all kinds of laws to protect us, but they won't pass a law to protect children from having their genitalia mutilated. These Republicans should be coming to this building every morning determined to get that done. First thing, I can't believe when Phelan and Leach pulled their maneuver to adjourn for 3 days that there wasn't an uprising. There should have been an uprising on the House floor. It is not okay to not protect Texas children. There are many bills, education related, to get the pornography out of schools, to get the indoctrination out of schools, and they did not pass. And it makes me sick to watch these legislators pat themselves on the back and say it was the most conservative session ever. You're not conservative if you don't protect children. And the heartbeat bill, that's nothing but an appeasement bill. Okay? I want to protect children. And do you know, abolition bills died in committee. In Representative Click's committee. Or a bill that was an abolition bill passed the Senate and the House. Why didn't that go to Greg Abbott's desk? That didn't go to his desk because he doesn't want it on his desk. Just like he doesn't want the gender modification ban on his desk. If it was a priority for Governor Abbott, Governor Fundraiser, I like to call him, he would have passed it. He would have made sure, and it would have got done. Protect Texas children.
Next up, we have a gentleman, the president of the Texas Freedom Force. This is Brandon Burkhardt.
Thank you very much. How's it going out there, Texans? Come on, welcome to better than that. How's it going? All right, so for those of y'all that do not know, I'm the president of This is Texas Freedom Force. We're a nonprofit organization that works in the preservation of Texas history. For the last 3 legislative sessions, we've been trying to get a monument protection bill passed in these walls. We've had a lot of problems along the way. Right now, every one of the bills that we've heard everybody talk about, let's talk about one thing. The Republicans control the governorship, they control the lieutenant governorship, they control the Senate, they control the House, they control every committee, including all of the calendars committees in this building. So why are these priority bills not passing? Because they don't want to. Because we've got a bunch of rhinos that are running the show. And I know somebody said earlier that this is the quote-unquote grassroots portion that's separate from the Republican Party. We'll make it known. We have no allegiance to any political party. Our allegiance is to Texas. Our allegiance is to liberty. Our allegiance is to freedom. And our allegiance is to our God-given rights. Amen. For our monument protection bill, we've had several rhinos standing in our way. We'll start with the top. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick started this year off. We had a bill, SB 1416, that was in the Senate. Senator Creighton has been kind enough to run our bill for 3 legislative sessions. When it went to committee, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick ran over to Senator Birdwell, who was the chairman of that committee, and told him, sit on the bill. We're not going to hear it this time. We passed this in 2019. The House didn't have the votes, so we're not going to allow this to pass. We're not going to waste our time. That's an utter lie, folks. What really happened is the Senate passed it in 2019, and there was 1 week left in the House to get it passed. It never had a first reading, nor a second or third. So how was there any debate in the House? There wasn't. So Senator Birdwell, he sat on the bill, and myself and Ramon, who is here, our outreach director from San Antonio, we went and visited Senator Birdwell, and we told him, your allegiance is not to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Your allegiance is to the people of Texas. And the last time we checked, in 2020, 97.3% of conservative Texans said we want a monument protection bill passed. So then we move on to the House to try to continue our bill because we know that the Senate's not going to do anything and Birdwell doesn't have the cojones to move it. because he's worried about his political career. So we get it all the way to calendars. First of all, I'm not particularly happy that the author of our bill, HB 2713, was too busy chasing tail around this Capitol, which was reported in the news media, to worry about passing bills. It's true. Yeah. A lot of people are doing that. So when we get into our calendar committee, we've got 7 Republicans that sit on that committee. We got 4 Democrats. No reason that this bill shouldn't have gone ahead, moved on to the House. They sat on it. We went to their offices 2 or 3 times a day. We spoke to them. We even brought a big chunk of our membership, lining the halls of outside their offices. And when they told us, oh, come on into the office, I told them there's no way we're going to fit. You come out into the hallway and come talk to the people. We told them that you've got 2 options. You can move this bill and let the Senate go ahead. And I will say that Senator Creighton is such a tough person. Y'all seen what he did for constitutional carry. The man sat in a wheelchair on the side of the House and said, I'm not leaving until I make this vote, because they knew they needed 18 senators to make that pass. He said, I will come back and I will run monument protection in the Senate. So he was prepared. And not only that, he promised he could do it in less than a week. Unfortunately, our bill got put on the sheet for 25 out of 28 pages of bills on the last day. This was done on purpose. This was done so the bill could be killed. And so it never got its first reading or its second to progress through. So now we're left with our response to that, in which we have told each and every one of those 7 Republicans that sat on the calendars committee, as well as the Lieutenant Governor, as well as Governor Abbott, and as well as Senator Berkeley. We'll be seeing you in your district. For those of you that don't know, in 2020, 150 of us stood armed up against 4,000 to 5,000 rioters and looters at the Alamo, and we protected the Alamo that night. We're not scared to go up to your district. We're not your constituents. But we stomp mud holes in people's you-know-what every single day. And we will do just that to you come re-election. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate it. All right. Let's see. Next up here we have Allie Dean. She set up something called RE-Sisters. So RE Sisters. It's a group on Facebook that's growing. It's got a lot of activists in it. And here we go. Allie Dean, folks.
Hey, y'all. Don't know me, or maybe we're Facebook friends, you know that I am a grassroots activist and I am all about call to actions. It is one of the most vital and important components of all of this, whether it's a call to action to call or email legislators and senators, or to show up at the Capitol. It is so incredibly vital. So what I noticed a couple of years ago when California went through their SB 276 is that they show up. They show up in force, they talk to their legislators, and they are so well versed in the bills that are being passed or introduced on their floors. But we don't really have that here in our great, amazing state that everyone thinks of the word freedom. And so my thought process a few years back was to start a group that specifically focused solely on call to actions. We're all involved in groups, we're involved in communities, and we all talk amongst ourselves. But not everyone is connected to every single group. Not everyone is connected to every single organization, and not everyone is following every single grassroots freedom fighter here in Texas. So that is the mission of RE-Sisters. If you want to find us, it is lowercase r-e, capital Sisters. It was founded by a woman veteran, which is me. It is run solely by me, and we don't get censored. Here's why. We don't allow posts into our group that are just educational, informational articles, blog posts. We go solely based off of what is submitted to our group that is events, call to actions, and the most important critical legislative stuff that is coming through for Texas. It's how I got connected to Brian, and it's how I found this rally. All of my people come from different groups. One of my favorite is the shirt I'm sporting today, Texans for Vaccine Choice. Yeah. They power behind so many important grassroots bills and have worked alongside Senator Bob Hall, who you heard from earlier today. So here's the mission. It's to continue getting those people. We don't want to grow to 1 million Texans. We don't want to grow to 1,000. If it doesn't mean that those 1,000 are not showing up. They're not calling. Because that's who we need. It takes us and our voice to be heard. So I'll leave you with this. As a mom, as a freedom fighter, as a veteran of the United States military, as a disabled veteran now, 100% service-connected disabled, I am the example in today's world that you would look at right now and you wouldn't think she has a disability. She had a vaccine injury. But months ago, when I was in the middle of my flare-up and pregnant, I was in a wheelchair for 6 months. I could not stand, and so that is what I fight for. I fight for the bills that are going to protect my freedom for informed consent. That the bills that get passed do not overstep, because let me tell you this, with mandates, no matter if it is vaccine mandates, passport mandates, doesn't matter what mandate it is, freedom can't exist. Informed consent cannot exist alongside any mandate. So find us, follow us. My name is Allie Dean, spelled the normal way, A-L-L-I-E, Dean, D-E-A-N on Facebook. If you want to follow me on any other social media channels, it is @WithAllieDean. I also have a freedom podcast, which is called Foreseen. And on there, we talk about all things foreseen with your host, Allie Dean. Thank you guys.
Right, I'm going to introduce our next activist and leader of Texas Liberty Defenders, Missy Weekly.
East Texas is on fire, by the way, and it's going to be heating up as we go on. My name is Missy Weekly. I'm the president of Texas Liberty Defenders. Our group was founded over a year ago. And the 3 things I want to talk to you about today. Number 1, Christianity. Number 2, children. Number 3, connection. Luke 18:27 says, "For the things of men are impossible, so with God all things are possible." We need to unite. We need to connect. I sat yesterday with lunch with Jill Glover at lunchtime, and we talked specifically about the grassroots groups. We talked specifically about how she has seen more than ever during this session, grassroots groups have united and started to work together and collaborate. Because y'all, that's what it's going to take. Okay, we've got to get the leaders of all of these grassroots groups together to connect, so that we can have more of us together. Your issue might be pro-life. Your issue might be pro-2A. But when we band together and we fight for all the conservatives' issues, we become a bigger number, okay? And then when we become a bigger number, we can get more done. I'm not, number 1, if you had to push me, okay? I will never be a single issue voter, never, okay? But if you had to push me and tell me that I had to choose just one issue, I'm always going to choose life first. Because without life, without getting here first, nothing else can happen. You can't grow up. You can't become old enough to vote. So life is critical. Yeah, they gave us the heartbeat bill. I'm not happy with the heartbeat bill. Lots of Christians are not happy with the heartbeat bill because we feel like they just gave us a little token to satisfy us. It's not enough. We need a strong pro-life bill. Life begins at conception. Gender is assigned by God at conception. Amen. The number 1 issue that these children have, and their parents have, these trans-identifying children, is that their heart is not right with God. And they are in direct disobedience of the authority that he has over us when he assigns our gender conception. I'm going to say something really tough to say here, but I'm not afraid to say it. I'm embarrassed and I'm sad to say it. Texas has become a sanctuary state for trans-identifying kids and their children and their parents. We have parents coming from other states where they have legislation on the books and it's illegal to do this to minors, and they're coming here to Texas and they're getting it done. And they're bragging to their friends about it. Children are the future. We're not here fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for the kids. We've got to be strong about an abortion bill and get them here, and then we've got to be strong about not allowing anything to happen to them by misguided or misunderstood parents before they become 18. I challenge you, go back to your respective groups, talk to them about connecting with other grassroots leaders. The ridiculous atrocities that happened here during this legislative session, we have a mermaid capital of Texas. Dr. Pepper is our official drink. Fireworks for Diwali Day? Are you freaking kidding me? There are so many more important things that we need to be fighting for, and our children is always going to be what I fight for. I thank you for your time. My name is Missy. You can find us on Facebook, Texas Liberty Defenders. We want to fight for all the conservative issues. We want to cooperate with other grassroots groups so that we can become a bigger number. If Pennsylvania can get 16,000 to their state capital, why can't we?
So next we have Kevin Witt with the Witt Project and Texas Mass Resistance.
Hello, hey, how many genders are there? Two, right?
Yes.
There's not 86 like they teach in schools? I didn't think so. And so the shirt I'm wearing says that there are only two genders, and it says gender defender. I'm a gender defender. There are two genders. Let's preach this and teach this to the citizens of this state, because obviously they don't know that. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I used to live as a transsexual woman for 20 years. I was extremely gender confused my entire life. I was a prostitute. I was a drag queen, a drag performer. I was an alcoholic, and all of that led to, stemmed from my transgender ideology and my gender confusion. And so, gender confusion, I'm here to tell you, is not normal. And gender dysphoria, yes, I was diagnosed with gender dysphoria by a therapist whenever I was younger, probably around 17. I was diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a very real mental illness. It's a very real mental illness that people struggle with, and that I struggled with until 7 years ago. And then whenever I found Jesus, he began to shift things and change things in my heart. And I realized that I was born a man, and just because I don't like to play football and go fishing, and because I like to do hair and I was a makeup artist and I like beautiful things, that does not make me gay, nor does that make me a woman. That makes me an artistic person. And so you can be an artistic male and still be a heterosexual straight male. Yes, I have a high-pitched voice and I might act a little more feminine than the next man, but it does not have anything to do with what's going on in my brain. And so, therefore, just because somebody, like the society that we live in America, in the Western civilization, says if you act a little more feminine than most men, then you're gay. If you don't play football and watch sports and go hunting and fishing, you're gay. And it's just not true. And so with the WIT project is what I do is we just started, and I started this WIT project because I decided that there is no pro-family activist groups in this country that are as bold as I am. Because I'm bold, and I don't care if I piss anybody off. I don't care if the whole world hates me, because guess what? Google my name, they already do. I got fired from the RPT, just saying. So I don't care. Because what I care about is that kids, they don't have to go through the things that I went through. That's the only thing I care about. And I care about stopping pediatric gender transition. It is child abuse, nothing more than child abuse. They are doing surgeries on minors, and it has to stop. And I'll wait for that to fly over a little bit. And so what I'm doing, I have a lot of friends across the country who I've connected with, and we are all friends, and we get together a couple of times a year, and we go to DC and different states and cities, and we gather around and we fellowship and talk and hang out and just know each other. And so with the WIC project, I'm gonna get all of my friends who have detransitioned, who no longer are transsexuals, because there's a lot of them out there, and we are going to go from state to state to visit these legislators and let them know that we have to stop this. Now, I will give it to Arkansas. Arkansas was one of the first states to ban pediatric gender transition and abolish abortion just this session. But here in Texas, we are supposed to be the conservative mecca, but we didn't do any of that stuff. So follow me on the WIT Project, witproject.com or kevinwitt.me. Thank you guys, and thank y'all for anybody that came out here and fought for these bills. And before I leave, I'll just tell you this. These legislators, whenever they author bills and file a bill, they are only filing that bill for their constituents.
That's right. That's right.
They're not filing that bill because they really give a damn about it. They're doing it to appease their constituents so that they will get reelected. So keep that in mind. And they don't push for these bills. I'm sorry, but I like Representative Krause. Representative Krause might have authored a bill to protect kids, but I didn't see him one day fighting for it. I saw Brian Slayton on the floor fighting for it. So where was he? Why was he not fighting for it? Why is he not here right now? Why did he not come out here and speak? Why has he not spoken at any of the rallies that we've had? Because he only cares about you re-electing him. That's why.
That's right.
And so many of these legislators, that's all they care about. And so you need to make sure to remember their names when it comes time primary season.
That's right.
And you better remember Patterson, the swamp creature, just say that. Patterson, Burrows, gotta go. Burrows, you gotta go. So just saying, y'all, don't let them fool you and say, oh, well, they authored a bill, so they're good. No, they're not. They did it for the to appease their constituents. And they knew the bill was not going to get passed. They knew it. They knew it was going to get killed. And they're like, oh, guess what? I tried. Well, you didn't try hard enough, damn it. I'm done.
Brian's talking, so I'll just go with time so
We're having a Facebook Live problem. So again, that's censorship because we started talking about vaccines, COVID, transgender stuff. So, no, you're fine. No, preach it. So, all right, so next we have an activist that is originally from California. She comes from a politically active family. She's here in Texas, has been here for at least 10 years fighting. And we've got the Patriot Girl next door.
Hi everybody. Some of you might recognize me on social media as the Patriotic Girl Next Door. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. Yes, I just admitted that. I came to Texas right when Governor Abbott announced his run for governor of Texas. I did my background on him and I came here to work not just one of his campaigns, but his second campaign as well. I've become extremely controversial on social media because I went after Greg Abbott. To me, it's a personal fight because this is Texas, this is not California. I did not move here to have Texas turn into California. The moment Abbott started violating all of our constitutional rights, I decided who better to call the man out than the woman that got him elected. Not once, but twice. I just want to let everybody know I am not associated with any individual organization. I do this on my own. I do not want Texas to become California. I am a local here in Austin. I have worked with all of these different grassroots that you see here. I've been to the Capitol every single day since this legislative session started. I come and I work 10 to 12-hour days, meeting with senators, representatives, reminding them of what their job and what their duty is to Texans. I have a lot of these grassroots groups that will send me texts, hey Bonnie, are you over at the Capitol? Can you go see what this person's saying? Can you go see what this person is saying? I'm the person that gets in their faces. I'm the person that calls them out publicly because they cannot come after me. I am not afraid of them. Like I said, I'm from Los Angeles. I just want to let all of you know that this section was absolutely disgusting. And I'm saying this because I'm originally from California and I've worked every single section in the state of California. So I can honestly say this was the most democratic pro session I've ever seen. And the sad thing is, I would have to admit, is it wasn't just the Democrats that were the problem. It's the Republicans, okay? I want to tell you how many times I showed up to representatives and senators' offices saying, hey, where are you on this bill? Why aren't you supporting this bill? Hey, Krause, you wrote this bill. Why aren't you speaking up for it? Why aren't you fighting for it like everybody else? I want you all to know the Republicans know what they're doing, okay? They are lying to us. They are playing games with us because most of you are not here at the Capitol. You don't know exactly what's going on. You're not seeing things and hearing things like I am because I'm here every single day. I know what games they're playing. They think that their constituents are too naive and too stupid to see what they're doing, okay? So I've been here every single day, and I want to tell you that I'm absolutely disgusted with the behavior of the Republicans. And honestly, you can't tell the Republicans from the Democrats anymore, with the exception of a few. Senator Bob Hall, who I absolutely love and respect, and Representative Brian Slayton, who's been fighting alongside with us on every issue. I'm on social media. You guys can reach out to me on social media if you have an issue with a representative, you want someone to get in their face. I am definitely your person. I've been doing this, like I said, here in Texas for 10 years. I have a backbone. I will fight back and I will speak up. I've been extremely active this session because I was sick and tired of people being lied to, people being manipulated, you know, and they go on their social media, oh, this is the most conservative session we've had. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, the heartbeat bill was not conservative enough for me. In that bill, someone like me, who is an abortion survivor, in that bill, the Texas legislature would have given my doctor permission to kill me. Thankfully, back in California in the 80s, my doctor believed in saving my life and saved my life. Okay, so this heartbeat bill is not good enough, and conservatives should definitely not be accepting this as breadcrumbs. So I just want to thank all of you for your time. If you have an issue that's not being addressed, reach out to me on my public website and I will address the issue for you. Like I said, I'm not afraid to get in these people's faces. We have to save Texas because as a former California girl, I can tell you the games these Republicans are playing, what Governor Abbott is now doing, what Lieutenant Dan Patrick has been doing, and I know a lot of you have seen me get in Dan Patrick's face personally. They're turning this state into California, and they're the ones doing it. They're the ones doing it, okay? So I can be a voice for so many people because like I said, I'm not afraid to get in people's faces. Thank you very much.
We are about to wrap it up. We're going to have one more speaker, and then we're going to wrap it up. This last person, he is a personal friend of mine. He's had, multiple titles throughout his life. Former paratrooper. He's a constitutionalist. And by the way, raise your hand if you're a constitutionalist. You believe in the United States Constitution? Awesome. Stuart Rhodes.
Good. Glad to be here, folks. Listening to people talk about what happened in this session, and it reminded me when I worked for Congressman Ron Paul in D.C., Texas Congressman Ron Paul. I could count on my hand, one hand, the number of constitutionalists in the House of Representatives back then. And sadly, today, it's the same way. The U.S. Congress, it'd be like a handful. And from what I know, from talking to Brian and others about your session here, you have the same problems in the state legislature. So all I can say is you're going to do what we did during the Ron Paul campaign. We took over our local GOP county groups twice over. In 2008 he ran. I was working for his campaign in Nevada. We took it over in 2012 as well. The problem was the Ron Paulers, when the campaign was over, they all faded back into the woodwork. You're going to have to do a long, hard fight of going and taking over your central committee in your own county where you live, taking over local government. And you got to just state it. It's going to be a hard fight. You got to root the rhinos out and Persian out of your party. And so you're going to have to just pick 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, your top 5. And this session was really prevented you from doing what you wanted to get done and betrayed you and put their skins on the wall. I mean, figuratively. Go and defeat them, primary them, run them out of office, and make an example out of them. Because the rest of them here, they don't fear you yet. They don't care about the big money donors behind them. They pat you on the head, as I said a little while ago. They pat you on the head, they'll co-sponsor a bill to look good. Same thing is done in the U.S. Congress. Same nonsense. So don't buy it. Stick their name on the list. Go after them in the primaries. Purge them out. But you got to take over your central committees in your counties. And they're going to hate you. They're not going to want you there. They're going to do all they can to get rid of you. Don't give in. Stick it through. It's the mistake that Ron Paul made. They did a sprint. He didn't get the nomination. They faded back out of the woodwork again. Then he ran again, did another sprint, took over all across the country. Took over county GOP chair positions and committees all across the country. And yet they faded away and it was all over with. We saw the same thing happen with President Trump. Now that he's no longer in office, and that was stolen, by the way, but now that he's no longer in office, we're fading out again. You got to go and you got to see it as a long, hard fight. It's just your responsibility, your civic duty as an American to be involved in local politics and take it over at the grassroots level. Because that's where it's going to go. It's going to be grassroots resistance now, especially got bad stuff coming down from state legislature, you know, like a bill trying to empower the governor even more than it already is. You're going to have to resist that and nullify, whether it's state or national level, at the county level. To do that, you must be strong in your county governments and united. The founding fathers took over their local town and county governments. They didn't just raise militia and prepare for the physical fight, they took over politically. And they got strong, full spectrum. You're in total war against communist China and their domestic puppets. Look at it the same way. Unrestricted warfare, you do the same thing to them they did to you. You go and you fight in every avenue, culturally, economically, legislatively, physically. Make sure you're ready to be strong in your counties and ready to resist and nullify. But you must take over your local politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And one last thing I'm going to go with today, folks, is paying close attention to the legislation that's going through both chambers in the Texas Legislature, Senate and House, particularly the Emergency Powers legislation, HB 3. There's been a lot of developments on it. Sometime this evening, I think the House has to vote on the Senate's very different version of the bill, sometime after 6 o'clock tonight. A lot of details I could go into there, but I won't. Just know that they're very different versions of the Emergency Powers legislation bills. And what's going through the House tonight would basically have to be voted on, and then there would be conferees that are appointed almost immediately. These are people that would be on the conference committee, 5 from the House, 5 from the Senate, that would then reconcile the differences between the two bills, which are very different. You know, the version coming out of the Senate, the version coming out of the House. We want protections on those bills. And so stay tuned, go to our page, go to social media updates to kind of get the latest on, if there's any action items, if there's anything that we can possibly do there. What I will say is that we need a prohibition on mask mandates. We also need prohibition on any type of vaccine requirement for, public employment, travel, work, anything. We need a prohibition on that as well. So those are amendments that this legislation needs that aren't currently on it. There's a number of others as well. Tom Glass is a very smart guy who's been testifying here all session, talking to legislators about the amendments that legislation needs. And talk to me afterwards. I can circulate that around further. I can get a copy of that to you. But if it's not dealt with here the next few days by the legislator and sent on to Governor Abbott's desk, then it very well could come up during special session. I mean, I've heard different opinions on that. And so with that being said, whatever priorities, whether it's emergency powers or monuments, whatever priorities you as a conservative are most concerned about, contact the governor's office. Send an email, be polite, be professional, but send an email to Governor Abbott's office, call the governor's office and say you want these items on the agenda for a special session. You may not listen, but it's still important that you deliver